because this is a relatively short room, we'll try not using the microphone, but if you can't hear us, please let us know, because there's nothing worse than not being able to hear. I'm Chuck Hawley, and our topic for this afternoon, for the next hour, is going to be on successful cruising events. We've been talking an awful lot about racing events or we will have over this 3-day period. This is more cruising oriented. One of the goals of U.S. Sailing is to reach out to cruising sailors and to give them reasons to become U.S. Sailing members, and to apply some of the safety ethos and other things that are part of U.S. Sailing and make them appropriate for cruisers. So we've got some cruising experts here. Kevin Wensley is from Offshore Sailing School and has worked with the Colgates for the last 15 years, has a ton of experience. Mark Pillsbury is from Cruising World Magazine, where he's been for 10 years an editor for the last 5. As I said, my name is Chuck Hawley, and for the last 35 years I worked for West Marine, and have about 40,000 miles of mostly cruising and delivery experience, and then some racing experience as well. So what we thought we'd do, this is a kind of an open forum, where we're going to open this up to questions, but we thought we'd start by describing roughly three events that we are associated with or participated in the past, sort of the benefits of those events and how they can be emulated by other organizations. So do you want to start off with your slide?
Sure. Yeah, mine comes with a little bit of a PowerPoint slideshow. Sorry about. Well, actually, I'm not going to apologize for that. That's poor presentation. I'm just going to go with the slides, because if I don't, I won't remember what to say. So stand by for 1 second. And the agreement that us three made before we got here was that this individually wasn't going to take more than 5 minutes. So for each of us to talk about our events. I'm not so much going to go with an event, but I'm going to go with, events plural, I'm going to go with an event and variations on the same kind of theme, how we get these things to be successful. So I'm Kevin Wensley. I'm the Director of Operations at Offshore Sailing School. Before I go any further, the accent's British. There's nothing Kiwi or Australian going on here. And there's nothing wrong with being a Kiwi or an Australian. Apparently it's there we are.
That's harsh there.
No, not at all. I just don't happen to share the same penchant for sheep as our friends the Kiwis do. And talking of food, which I'm sure that's what Ken Reed was talking about yesterday. Yeah, I'm sure it's talking about food, right? Does anybody in the room want to tell me the difference between Australia and a yogurt?
What?
A yogurt? A yogurt? I'd call it yogurt. Given enough time, yogurt develops a culture. There you go. Anyway, ouch, that hurt. This is just so that I can tell you the British and humility. I'm sorry I'm taking up too much time already. This is my second time I've been asked to speak at one of these events, which is kind of in keeping with my kind of standard record for most places. I'm often invited back twice. The second time usually being to apologise. But on this occasion, that's not the case. So, Kevin Wensley, Director of Operations. I'm going to very quickly, and I promise you very quickly, talk a little bit about who we are, Offshore Sailing School, also the Offshore Cruising Club and how that works, given the topic of this particular breakout session. So the Cruising Club, how it works, and a few of the things that we've learned over the many years we've been doing it that keeps it being successful and keeps people coming back. So who we are, Offshore Sailing School. We quite happily declare ourselves America's #1 sailing school. You guys might be a pretty tough crowd convinced of that. But the good fellows at Practical Sailor did rank us #1 in terms of our curricula and also in terms of the quality of our instructors. So I'm very pleased to hear that. We've been going for 50 years, and this is our 50th, and so there's lots of celebrations planned for that. And we have what we think about 130,000 graduates to our credit. We have to kind of guesstimate that a little bit, because back 50 years ago when we started, the computer wasn't around and our bookkeeping hasn't been that spectacular, but we're pretty certain it's about 130,000. We're in 8 locations. We're up in New York, 3 on the Hudson. We're in St. Pete, and we're in Captiva, in Florida, and Fort Myers Beach. The third from the top photo, I just stuck in there for a laugh. If you're from the north and it's snowing, that was the view out of my office window the day before I left. We're also in the BVI. consider ourselves the innovation in sailing, or the innovators in sailing education. If you were the first to market 50 years ago, that makes you, I guess, an innovator. And we kind of kept on that theme, and the last thing we did was actually with a joint venture with Boat US. We just came up with an online learning program, which people pay to take advantage of. Steve and Doris are the leaders and still very much at the helm. There's Steve and Doris. So Steve, an Olympic sailor, America's Cup sailor, lots of ocean racing to his credit. I think about 9 texts he's written on sailing, and then we've got Doris as well, who's very much the business, still very heavily involved. Both of them winning plenty of awards. Doris kind of heads up or has had a lot of influence on women's sailing. And one of the awards they've actually got from the nice fellas at US Sailing, who we work closely with, is the award for leadership and excellence in sailing education. So here's a big difference, very quickly, a big difference to lots of things I've been listening to in other seminars. We promote sailing as a lifestyle. We don't see it as, it's not a sport, it's a lifestyle. And I'm not trying to be blunt when I say we're not particularly involved with helping kids to go sailing. We don't teach kids. We're not particularly worried about whether or not the US is going to be, who the next Olympiad is going to be. And we're not particularly involved with community sailing. We are for-profit. I became an American last year, and I was told that capitalism was okay, so we want to make money. That's what we're about. But in the same breath, yeah, we make money, but we do care about the kids. So yes, we do have outreach programs that we run in Jersey City for underprivileged kids, get them sailing. Yes, we work very closely with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and raise bunches of money for that. In fact, Steve and Doris just got an award for how much we raised for those guys. And yeah, community sailing, we're big supporters of. But our business is making money, and that's the model that we use. We do train primarily adults. We're not recruiting kids into sailing, we're recruiting adults into sailing, so they're 40 plus usually. And what we're training them to do is go cruising. We train them in the way to go bareboat chartering, and they do that. And then we work closely with the moorings, and I'll just talk about that relationship in a second. And put together cruises every year with people that come through our schools, and between 5 to 8 boats a year will go on a cruise, or 2 or maybe 3 a year in different locations, and they're very successful. I do want to mention quickly that we're into racing as well. Steve's heritage is America's Cup and Olympics, and we work with the guys at North U very closely, and one of our signature events is the North U Race Week. But what I want to talk about here is cruising. So 1972 or thereabouts, one of the instructors said to Doris, I believe, so we train all these people to go and work with these bigger boats, but they've got nowhere to go. What are we going to do with these guys? So I don't know if Steve and a guy called Charlie Carey were mates at the time. They became very good friends over time. But Charlie had just set up the moorings with, I think, some Pearson 35s, this going back in 1969. So in 1972, Steve and Doris took a bunch of people down, and that became the first of the offshore sailing, offshore cruising club in 1972. And the key about it was it continues to be exclusively for offshore grads. It's actually used as a sales tool. So if you come and do a course with us, you get to join our flotillas, and we go off and cruise around in different locations around the world. We used to do like 6 to 8 of these things a year. And the reason for that success is there was nobody else doing it. It was like, offshore sailing school were the only ones around doing this program, and it was great. But now competitions come in, people are doing their own things privately, other schools are doing it. And so now we're down to at least 2 a year. This year we're doing Lake Superior in Thailand. I put those shots up because I thought it was kind of fun how similar they looked. It's like, wait a minute, that's Lake Superior and that's Thailand. I thought it was kind of funny. If you took the same photo today up on the left, I'm sure that would look slightly different. The cruises themselves are led by offshore sailing school instructors, and I'm going to talk a little bit about cruise leaders and how important they are. But yeah, having a professional sailing instructor type who's full-time with offshore sailing school leading them is paramount. And for many years, it was actually Steve and Doris themselves that used to go and run these cruises for us. A little outshot of some of our sales collateral, if you will. These are all the different destinations we've sailed in. We've sailed from places like Australia, and we're taking people from Australia, to the west coast of Florida, which is right in our neck of the woods. And having a really sexy kind of exotic location is important, but actually how we run the flotillas is actually just as important. I'll touch on that in a sec. So the three variations of the theme, one is, yeah, we have this exclusive membership club where we take people that are grads and we go to various cruises around the world. But as always, we want more, and so we were thinking of ways of how can we sell more people into these programs. So we came up with the idea of let's have a celebrity and some co-promotion. So the very nice people of Cruising World said, hey, why don't you guys tie yourselves up with or get involved with this fellow called Fatty Goodlander, see if that draws a crowd. I actually have a full body picture of Fatty, but I just want you to know that what he's wearing there is about all he wore all week. So I figured it wasn't the appropriate rating. But anyway, Fatty did draw some people. I think we had 5 boats on that occasion, and the Cruising World guys helped out, of course, because they were talking about us and them, and we sold a few spots. What has actually become really quite successful in terms of just getting people into boats is using the team building kind of leadership development idea. So a lot of organizations, I don't know if you're a part of any of them, kind of do a team building event where you do sailing around buoys, that kind of stuff, get people out of their comfort zone, experiencing new things. Well, we kind of did a McDonald's thing on it. We supersized it and said, okay, well, if it works on a small scale, let's do it on a big scale. And so we worked, this is an example according to the Stretch Expedition and the Proudy Group. So Proudy is a consultancy out of Minneapolis, and they work with big organizations or boards that need to be re-energized or restructured, and they want to take people out of their comfort zones and do something pretty exciting with them. We do a lot of work with some of the MBA programs. We work with Wharton, with Emory. We're talking to Stephen Ross, of Michigan. All good stuff. And we find ourselves talking the leadership kind of teamwork lingo, but it brings people in, and we get 8 to 10 boats. In fact, Ryan has joined us on a couple of these ventures. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan being a former instructor of ours, and quite a good one on occasion, I believe. No. So why sailing works in a leadership development program or a team building thing is that it provides what we call a very new and high impact experience. And high impact being, it affects you physically, it takes you out of the space you're used to physically, it affects you mentally, it affects you emotionally, and arguably it affects you spiritually. Like, when you sail out at night past Round Rock into Anegada Passage and the stars are twinkling and all you can hear is the noise of the boat cutting through the water, it's kind of a spiritual kind of event. What we do is we take them out of their comfort zone, stick them in somewhere like the Caribbean, install an element of what we call complex competition. So this isn't simply about boat races. This is about creating a challenge that they have to solve, and your ability to sail a boat isn't necessarily going to make that much of a difference. You have to think a bit more creatively than that. The fact that it's a dynamic environment, it's wind, it's water, it changes all the time, means they're going to have to be constantly adapting. You get that going, and then in the middle, you get what we think of as personal development and personal growth. A learning experience comes out of that. Things break down, they come back together, and people grow from it. Personally, I think it works because it's kind of fun, and it's user-friendly, and sailing should be that, always. And there's no physical or gender limitations. Everybody can do it, so there's no reason why not. In fact, if you'd been in this last seminar before this one, it was about leadership and working your own programs. The question was asked, how many people have actually taken part in any kind of leadership training or leadership development or whatever? And I think like nearly 90% of the room put their hands up. Well, that must be a big market. Great. Well, why don't you all just come sailing with us and go give us some money, and we'll help you evolve even further. So it's successful, it's not successful by accident, it's well thought through. Yes, the destination is important. The association with the moorings is key because it allows us to have pretty much identical boats. Nobody wants to go on a cruise and be on the boat without the air conditioning. Nobody wants to be on the cruise and be on the shorter boat because it doesn't go as fast as the longer boat, and the longer boat's always at the bar first. We don't like that. So making sure everybody's got the same serving, if you will. We're marketing about a year out, so whenever the next one's in July, so by July we'll have the plan for next summer, and then Thailand's in December. Continuously promote the event. Every week something comes out about the cruises and how our grads can take part, whether it's a newsletter or an e-blast. Every time there's a graduate kind of celebration if somebody leaves, we promote the next cruises that are coming up. We manage expectation really well. We produce this thing called the Cruise Brochure, and in it, it goes down to the minutiae of, yes, here's how to share a space on a boat. Here, the water's going to be somewhat restricted. You're not going to have much ice. Don't make a noise on deck at night. Because they've been doing it for so long, there's even, like, in our cruise brochure, and I'm saying that I'm proud of this, it actually tells you how many pairs of underwear somebody would want to take with them on a cruise in the tropics. I didn't come up with that number, Doris did, and clearly she wears more underwear than I do, but anyway.
Or wears underwear at all.
Sure, exactly.
Yes.
Isn't there an opportunity to take a shot at the Kiwis again there?
I'm coming back to that. Yeah. The only reason that anything that we do offshore is successful is it's word of mouth. It's repeat business. It's people talking amongst their friends or thumbing to their friends now or texting. If we don't get it right, then we run into problems. So we're constantly asking people for feedback. How was it? What did we do well? What did we do not so well? Be honest. Get the feedback and use it. Take that feedback and change things that need to change. Don't change things because you can. Change them because they need to change and become better. The cruise leader position is something that's considered quite an honor to be if you're the instructor that's chosen. But we don't just get the instructor and say, hey, go ahead and do your thing in the Caribbean with a bunch of guys, just to give you an idea of how much thought goes into this. I didn't write it, but this is pages 1 and 2 of a 7-page document that gives you guidelines of how to behave if you are an offshore coach leading one of these flotillas. You can't see it, but the detail of this one is fantastic. If I can find it in just 1 sec, which I think I can, which is good fortune, can I read the first sentence here? And it's kind of funny because, I can't, I've lost it. Bugger. Anyway, bottom line is, it says no fraternization with any of the clients. If you're the cruise leader, you cannot fraternize with the clients, which I think is a bit rich coming from the guy who married a student of his, I think in his 2nd year, and became Stephen Doris Colgate. So, practice what you preach, Steve. So here's a cruise leader. I wouldn't recommend the character traits work well in. This guy you've probably seen before, Captain Jack Sparrow. I don't endorse his sentiments of he who falls behind gets left behind. I don't think that's right. Part of me, because of the capitalist thing, does think take what you can, give nothing back, but that's not really what we mean. We give a lot back. We give value is what our proposition is. And we build lots into our programs to make it worth the money. But what this guy does do is he does mention, and I use it with the guys quite a lot, is to say, you're going on this thing, there's going to be problems, things are going to go wrong, but the problem is not the problem. Problem can only ever be your attitude to the problem. So the problems are going to happen, it's how the guys deal with it that makes the difference. So anyway, that was as quickly as I could just tell you about us, what we do. We run the cruises, and the themes that we have the grads, we have the celebrity co-promotion type thing, and we have the leadership thing and the latest developments that we put into play.
Great, thank you.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
So that's one view of this, which is the commercial side, where you can sort of buy into the cruising lifestyle and have something that has a high likelihood of success. And so now we're going to hear about a couple of other options. Mark's going to talk about some events that he's either his company has sponsored or that he's familiar with that take a different approach. Mark.
Thanks. So yeah, sort of 3 different things that I've been involved with, and just to kind of give you an idea of the range of ways you can get cruising sailors involved in events that are kind of a big win for everybody. The first would be a Jeannot rendezvous down in the BVI. I was assigned to go to it. I had to do it. It was March, April timeframe, so you're a little bit off season. You get a deal on the boats. It was a combination of probably half the boats there, which their owners were out cruising them in the Caribbean. The other half were charter boats from, I think it was from Sunsail. Opening night, real nice party at Peter Island. Next day, very windy race up the bitter end. Tanya Abbey was there that night for the celebrity, put on a nice evening event. Next day, we stayed at the bitter end. There was laser racing and catamaran racing, very windy. Big party that night, sponsored by Cruising World and a local wine distributor, which is probably everybody ended up in the pool. And then after that, we had a day to go sail wherever we wanted. Half went to Foxy's and drank, the other half went to a full moon party. And drank. Big pirate party down at the Willie T at the end of the cruise, and then back home. It was great for everybody involved for a few reasons. The owners of their own boats, you know, cruising can be kind of a lonely thing. You're out anchorages by yourself a lot of the times. So it was a chance for a week of a lot of intense social activities. For the charterers, it was a chance to come down and maybe sail on a Jeanneau that was a little bit bigger than what they're sailing at home, a little bit newer, which is nice for the brokers. It also gave them a chance to meet people who had, you know, made the escape and were out there cruising full time. And so that gave them a real taste of the lifestyle. And for Jeanneau USA, it was a friggin' home run. All these people extolling the virtues of Jeanneau. They brought Eric Stromberg over from the factory, who's the new boat visionary guy, and he could talk to them about, you know, he could talk to owners and get feedback from them about the boats they own. He could talk to them about the boats that they have coming out. So all in all, it was, you know, 30 boats. Everybody had a great time, and it massaged people in a lot of different ways. Another kind of model around the rally kind of thing was...
All those people from the same yacht club?
No, they were from all over the United States, Europe. So it was an exotic but attainable location. BVI is easy to park into, and there's a lot of people down there cruising on their boats anyways. Kind of a different variation of that, Seawind Catamaran. They had 3 owners cruising Baja and brought a 4th boat down, which a few of us jumped on just for, you know, a week or so. Not really nearly long enough, but so we had to go back to work. We sailed around for 4 or 5 days around the Loretto area, and then it was all time to kind of culminate at Loretto Fest, which is this big party in Baja. It's sort of the end of the season. The boats from there will be going their separate ways, either back to California or up to be stored for the season. It's in, I think it was towards late April, and so it was really cool. You could get down and you could, there were boats sailing around for the first few days in the various anchorages, and you slowly started to meet people, and then the final weekend, there was probably, I don't know, 150, 200 people in Loretto, which Loretto Fest started as a few cruisers met there 15 years ago and decided it'd be fun to have a party, and, oh, let's do something, we'll clean up the beach where we're gonna have the party. And it evolved over the years, and it grew, and by the time I went a couple of years ago, you know, they had 2 days of seminars, they had weather routers there, they had this Saturday night spaghetti dinner, big dance, all the money they raised, close to $10,000. They put into a scholarship fund for local students to get them to go to the United States for their college. So it's just, again, a win on a whole lot of reasons, which is, I think, maybe one of the keys here to attracting cruisers to things. They like to be involved, they like to be engaged, they like to maybe do something that's a little bit bigger than just sailing around. And then the third one is just a personal experience I had. I was fortunate enough to get elected Commodore of a local boating club. We live in a little town just north of Boston and just south of Marblehead, Massachusetts. So sort of in between 2 big racing meccas. And for years they had a pretty active one design fleet, and that had fallen into total disarray. And mostly because as younger people were coming up, they were buying cruising boats, you know, Catalina 30s, Pearson 26s, whatever. So the weekend after I was coronated, a big storm came, blew the floats through the front of the building, and we had a problem. So In the spring, it was all volunteer. We pulled the floats out, and we started rebuilding the clubhouse, which created a bit of camaraderie. But the one design sailing was clearly in trouble. So a few of us decided, well, let's start some cruising boat races. And we borrowed a PHRF book from someone and came up with these kind of fun races. You know, you had to bring your kids. It had to be about 2 hours out on the water. If it was too windy, we wouldn't go. So it was clearly fun, but it was to get people out racing that had never raced. And worked pretty good. We called them charter races. At the end of each one, we'd have a big pot of chowder. People would bring beer. And the trophy at the end of the year was a little wooden thing with a can of chowder on it. Well, 20 years later, it's still going on. And the benefit has been that it's gotten cruisers that normally didn't race to learn to be a little bit better sailors. It's spread to 2 of the local yacht clubs, so now they share a trophy that gets passed between the yacht clubs, and they take turns hosting the party afterwards. And I think it just shows that cruisers will race, but they don't want to get beat up doing it. They like the fun stuff. And if you put the cruiser in charge of setting up the race and designing the race, it's probably going to be more fun for them than U.S. sailing sanctioned. So those are my 3.
Good, thanks, Mark. Okay, I was trying to think of equivalent events that have sparked a lot of interest and get a lot of butts and boats and people enjoying their boats. The first one I wanted to discuss was the Pacific Cup. So for years there was something on the West Coast called the Kauai Race, which raced out of the Alameda and went over to Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. And this race attracted kind of 25 to 40 boats, and it didn't really have a theme to it. And in 1990, West Marine decided to become the title sponsor, so it became the West Marine Pacific Cup. And at that time, we decided to rebrand it as well, and we would take it over at a board position, but we rebranded it as the Fun Race to Hawaii. And this was to draw a distinction between the Pacific Cup and the Transpac. The Transpac, 100-year-old race, extraordinary capabilities, wonderful boats, no problem with the Transpac, but the Transpac was really a racer's race. And so the Pacific Cup came up with a couple of differences. One is that it offered a double-headed division. We had extensive seminars before the start to encourage people that were not used to going across oceans, that they could do this. And the seminars were kind of safety-oriented, but they were also boat preparation and how to get your crew ready to go and so forth. And then we made it obvious that it was a fun event and that the key wasn't necessarily on winning, but it was participating and getting out there with your boat and your family and friends. And so the race went from having 40 boats to a maximum of 70 boats, because that's as much as the Kaneohe Yacht Club can accept at the far end. And so for years, it would sell out way in advance. It's a biennial race, so every other year it would sell out well in advance. And it was only when the economy hit the skids in 2000-ish that it didn't hit its full allotment of 70 boats. So I think it's an example of rebranding a race to make it cruiser-friendly, and to encourage people to use their boats where they may be put off by the idea of competing at a higher level because it seems like it's beyond them. The second example I would give you is not a sailboat event at all, but it's an extremely popular event that we, West Marine, sponsored, again, kind of the 1990s to 2000s, and that was called West Marine Trawler Fest. So I don't know if there are any trawler owners here, but it's likely that at some point you will become trawler owners, because that's where trawler owners come from. They don't come out of power boats, they come out of sailboats, and they decide that going up on the foredeck in the middle of the night is kind of a stupid activity, and so they get a pilot house so they can stand watch wearing bunny slippers. So West Marine Trawler Fest was something I came up with an avid trawler owner, a Canadian named George Kalishnikov. And George and I put together this idea that we would go to small harbors in the Pacific Northwest, and also happen in New England, Florida, and Southern California. And we'd sort of take over the harbor and encourage people, if they had trawlers in the area, to bring them in, bring in brokerage boats, and just bring in people that wanted to talk trawlers for a 3-day weekend. We did this in Polsbo, Washington, which is this lovely, quaint Norwegian town in Washington, and it was tremendous. We ended up getting 600 or 700 people coming into Polsbo for this 3-day weekend. We'd have 100 boats, and the boats would be a combination of new boats where we have, it's kind of like a mini boat show, brokerage boats, because a lot of these people are in the market for secondhand boats, and we would have boats that were privately owned. And part of the scene was to go down the docks and basically to weave your way through the boats and go in the engine rooms and hear all about them. And because we're bringing together with people of like attitudes, it was tremendously successful, and our biggest one ended up having 1,100 people in Solomon's Island. So it's this is the sort of theme of getting people with common interest together and giving them a little bit of social, a little bit of education, a little bit possibly competition, although not necessarily, and making it fun. The reason West Marine got involved with this is because it helps us when people use their boats, because they buy stuff from us, and they break stuff, and they maintain their boats better, and they get almost spiffed up to go on these events. And so, interestingly, we figured that everybody that went the Pacific Cup for the first time would spend about $20,000 on their boat, and that was pretty impressive, because you get 70 boats getting ready to go on a race like this, so it generates a lot of business activity as well for people in the business. The third event, and we've talked about the BVI twice, but I'll just say I just got back from the BVI in an event that I created with an MD called MedSail. The idea behind MedSail was that all doctors and medical professionals have to get 30 continuing education units every 2 years to maintain their license status. So this is true of nurses and doctors, and I'm not an expert in this, but that's what I understand. My wife's a nurse, she has to have 30 hours of continuing education. So I figured, well, instead of making this like a classroom scene, let's do it in the British Virgin Islands, and let's do it on moorings, catamarans, and monohulls. So this year we had 100 people fly into the moorings, 50 of whom were MDs and nurses. We gave lectures for 2 hours each morning in these beautiful anchorages, which have already been discussed. And in the afternoon we went sailing and had parties in the evening. And suddenly you create sort of something out of nothing, where you've got 100 people coming in, they're loving these boats. We chartered 19 boats for the moorings. The moorings loves us, and everybody wins in this process. The reason I was involved is because I speak about safety at sea, and I also then get a free vacation out of it, which is great. But by doing that, you have the educational component, you have the camaraderie, and you learn new skills, because many of the people that show up to do this are poor sailors, and they rent a boat that has a charter captain on it, and they become very accomplished. So, 3 different aspects of improvement cruising events. So now I'd like to open it up to the floor. If you have any questions on ideas that you've had about increasing cruising participation, sold out events. Yes?
Simple question about the headline, sunflower. Are you going to talk about the sunflower? Did you have a...
So the sunflower refers to, anchoring stern to and putting boats in a circle, and the idea is the bigger the circle, I guess, the more successful the event. And I guess...
Thank you for that. I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah. I don't know if it applies. I guess powerboat rendezvous have the same thing, but yeah, you're right. We probably should have indicated that.
Island Packet does the sunflower.
Okay.
And quite a lot of their rendezvous, and they found it to be a very fun event. So they'll set up like a 3-day weekend and get all the Island Packet owners together from that area. And the highlight of it is creating that sunflower for like the Saturday afternoon cocktail party. And God knows how they accomplish it. I think they have a lot of tenders and a lot of planning and whatnot, but it's really fun, and it makes for...
I know you need a czar.
It makes for great photography. Then if you get somebody to go over it and take a picture, it's really stunning.
People does it. So, we're a yacht club in Connecticut, and we've got a lot of one-time races, but we also have cruisers, and more of our cruisers are powerboat cruisers, old sailors. Does anybody, we have an annual cruise every year, but which is a week-long cruise out, Block Island or Nantucket or someplace out east. But kind of a drop? Has anybody found any good ideas to increase it, or?
I'm in a wonderful position. I belong to 3 different yacht clubs, and I've been on the St. Francis Yacht Club cruises, and the Commodore each year, a couple years out in front, gets to pick their idea. And they have, St. Francis has got it pretty well nailed. They vary it from year to year, and so it becomes an evolutionary thing. One year they chartered the Sun Star Clipper, whatever it is. It was when the America's Cup was going on in Valencia, and because they chartered the whole boat, they were able to spend 2 extra days in Valencia, and we got to watch some of the Louis Vuitton stuff going on. And then we went off to Ibiza, and whatever the other islands were, had a great cruise. They also did a thing similar to your deal with the BVIs, through moorings or whichever one, chartered about 18 or 20 boats, 22 boats, something like that. A couple owners had their own yachts on the East Coast and met us down there. And one of the greatest successes that they had I don't remember if it was 8 days, 2 weekend full thing, was that they only had events every other night. So you could get up early in the morning and go get the best mooring, or you could disappear for a day and go someplace else, and then come in and try to find a mooring. And then they had beachside events, they had boat-to-boat events, and then they varied it up quite a bit. And I think the biggest thing on these things is to have a 3-year plan, and to say, we don't want to go to Lock Island every single year and do this kind of, we're in Southern California at Cal Yacht Club. We end up pretty cookie cutter most of the time. We go to Catalina Island, we go to Santa Barbara, we do something. But like we're getting ready for a charter group going up to the Pacific Northwest and going to a different location. So and then you do have to have a local to home event, because not everybody can fly and take 10 days or whatever. So if you have a long range plan, and you say every second or third year we're going to go someplace and get within that, don't over structure it so that there is free time. Some people like to go diving, some people like to go mountain climbing, some people whatever. And so that you don't have something every 5 minutes throughout the thing, but there is enough structure that it gets the group moving from place to place, and it has that. That's the camaraderie building fun part.
Thank you for sharing that. I think some of the builders that we work with, it seems like 2 to 3 year things seems to be good. If you try to do it every year, you kind of get the burnout factor. And I think picking the exotic locations that bring people.
Well, yeah, I get the away cruise. We do that. We do the BVI thing. And New York, of course, New York Yacht Club does all kinds of away. But that's kind of picking a place and seeing who wants to spend some vacation time, some vacation money toward that.
The other thing I think,
everybody's got a lot of money and a lot of effort sunk into these boats that are in Long Island Sound, and they're not going to take them down. Most of the time, they're not going to take them down to BVIs, they're not going to take them to the Great Lakes or the Pacific Northwest. So, we're trying to figure out ways on a weekend basis or on a 7-day basis to get more members using those boats together.
well, another thing you might try, instead of trying to get more of your members, is in Cuttyhunk. Sorry to talk East Coast local, but Cuttyhunk's a popular destination that's midway between a lot of different places, and quite often there are 2 or 3 yacht clubs that are plan their cruise to all arrive there the same night. So I think if you're not getting the participation, and no one wants to go on the annual cruise if it's going to be worse than last year's, so try to find a nearby yacht club that you get part, because they're probably going through the exact same thing, and then all of a sudden you've got the people that are actively cruising from that yacht club and the ones from yours, and suddenly you have critical mass again, and it's fun, and you're meeting new people, and it's giving the whole thing kind of a fresh feel. That's what happened with the racing up where we are, is that you were racing against the same 8 guys every 3 times a summer, and it got kind of old, and all of a sudden we brought 2 more clubs in, and neither of those clubs did much racing at all. So now suddenly they're running their own racing programs at their own clubs, and everybody's really looking forward to this one big party, sometime during the summer. It's been really pretty successful.
experiences that you've had, Sally, what are what do you consider some of the best cruising events in the industry? You've been involved in this a long time.
I think there are a lot of different ways to slice it. Certainly, the manufacturer rendezvous are very successful. I agree with the gentleman who said, you need to maybe not make it too structured for cruising and keep it open. When I hear of successful events, I think there's a nice balance between, we're going to do things together, but we're also going to have some alone time. And I think that's really critical. I would recommend you keep the time short, because time is our single greatest competitor. And so don't try and maybe do a 7-day cruise. Try and do a 4-day cruise, and see if that can work for folks. And maybe, I think Mark was getting this a little bit, come up with a cause. There's some great folks up near us that put together a little weekend event, and they wanted to benefit the hospital up near Boston. And so they said, hey, we're going to just have a little weekend thing. We're going to do a point-to-point cruise, and we're all going to come back here on Saturday night, and we're going to have a rockin' party. And we're going to get a great band, and we're going to have some food, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And all money's going to go to this hospital up in Boston. And so that gave everybody another reason to come and do it, and got everybody really fired up. And they had a blast. Everybody had a great time. And it wasn't really racing, it was like point-to-point cruising.
I'd like to pick up on one comment that you made, which is the amount of structure. I had a discussion, Richard Spindler was one of the people I tried to get on this panel tonight, but he is still in Mexico and probably still trying to get profligate out of the clutches of the Mexican tax authority. But he and I had a conversation about 6 years ago or something, talking about the difference between the Baja Ha, which he had created and which has been extraordinarily successful, versus the Pacific Cup, which I felt some ownership of. And he said, the Pacific Cup was very structured, and it was quite expensive to join. I can't remember, maybe $3,000 to enter the race, or $2,500 to enter the race. And it was very prescriptive. And he said, you're going about it the wrong way. He said, Baja Ha costs $169. You get 150 boats, not 70 boats. And the people who participate do all the work. There's not a board of directors and a big, corporate entity. It's just kind of Latitude 38. And in fact, he sort of divorces Latitude 38 away from it and makes it sort of almost a socialist organization. And as a result, it's wildly successful. And they get 150 or so boats going down to Baja every year. So it actually doesn't have to be this really hyper-organized thing, and the people who participate will do the work. They'll put together the parties, they'll put together seminars, they'll put together whatever. It doesn't have to be a West Marine or some big corporate entity. Has anybody gone on the Baja Ha? How was it?
Phenomenal. And I never talked it down, but I thought, and I do boat deliveries up and down the coast. I never want to be in Turtle Bay with 150 other boats. We got down there, and that harbor's huge, and so is Santa Maria, and Cabo can absorb it all. And Richard is the Pied Piper. That guy, people just follow him. And they talk about when did you finish and what did you do and all this other stuff. And there's no posting of finish times or anything. He makes it up. Everybody gets a trophy. You're either first, second, or third in class, and then there's another class. And it's insane. And they do a beach potluck. The only organized thing is in the most remote corner of the Pacific coast. He brings in a live band and a Mexican restaurant set up in Santa Maria Bay, beach party. And they go all night if they're still dancing, and he does a morning, radio thing, and it just, he is the Grand Poobah, but he's the Pied Piper. And people just follow him, and I never thought I'd have that much fun. I thought, it's, people the Baja.
Ha.
B-A-J-A-H-A-H-A.
It usually leaves on Halloween or right around Halloween.
At the end of hurricane season.
And it's about eight days down there.
And where does it start?
San Diego,
San
right here.
Diego.
So you charter a boat out of San Diego?
Take your own boat.
Well, it's largely the west
I'm gonna haul my
coast.
boat to Connecticut, right?
It's largely the west coast.
Well, I can fly. So I can charter a boat from San Diego?
You might,
If you can get permission to take it into Mexico.
Get on the
you
boat.
can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Looking for a crew.
Yeah.
The charter guys will let you take it into Mexico?
No, well, I don't know if they will or not, but what I'm saying is that if you don't have a boat, there's a crew list, there's
Yeah,
all sorts of ways to
I'll go with my
facilitate
family, yeah.
your going on it.
It's stupid fun. It's insane. I'm a cheerleader.
Yeah, thank you. Sally, any other comments?
Well, I was gonna say, if you wanna do something less ambitious than something like that, I don't know how many of you have heard of summer sales tests? But John Art from Latitude 38, another great Latitude 38 person, came up with this idea of the Saturday nearest to the summer solstice, thank you, should be a day to celebrate sailing globally. Started out locally, nationally, globally, and the idea is just go out on your boat and use it and take people with you, so that maybe some new people can experience sailing. And maybe that's something that you could rally your club or your group around. Hey, let's do something for
Yeah.
summer sales test.
Yeah, I like the idea of theme, and that's another example. of it.
And
One day
they
at a
have a great website where you can then share your story. They give prizes for the most interesting story. You know, it's a very cool thing. And it's got thousands and thousands of people to go out on that day and share sailing and just enjoy it. And so look that up and see if you can organize something locally to participate.
What's Latitude 38?
West Coast Free Magazine.
Where have you been? So I think they're around 35 or 37 years in business, and it's it's our monthly, West Coast monthly. So
Free.
free, 50,000 circulation.
Do you read Windcheck or
Yeah, yeah.
Spreadsheet? It's
the
the
West
founder of those kind of magazines. Spreadsheet modeled themselves after Latitude 38,
Okay,
and Windcheck modeled themselves after Spreadsheet, but Latitude 38 is the original.
okay. Is it physical still, or is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Electronic latitude, without a E, electronic latitude
Electronic latitude.
is a 3 times a week thing that Richard puts out, and from that link, you can actually go online and read the magazine.
It's a phenomenon. I mean, it's great. It's good writing. It's like 250 pages now. It's amazing. I got one glossy magazine, not represented by anybody who's in this room. Gorgeous magazine that comes out about 8 times a year, and it has like 32 pages. And Latitudes, it's like a phone book. Yes.
Just in case anybody else is interested, he also puts on 2 other, the Delta Doodah,
Delta Edition, yeah.
Delta Doodah.
something
Delta,
like that.
yeah.
And you could probably charter a boat out of San Francisco to go on that one, but it's a limited amount of people. And then, not last year, but the year before, he started doing the SoCal Tata,
To get boats.
Which is a feeder.
which is a feeder for the Ha-Ha, but goes from, it's Channel Islands and a couple of stops on the mainland and to Kettle. And that one, you could certainly charter a boat in Delray or Ventura and participate in.
I think the theme is, or kind of a common thing here is that it's got to be fun, and it's got to be tied to a certain time of year where you can plan for it, like on the East Coast, we have
Right,
a few
third Saturday,
Right.
July, or whatever.
Or it's got to be something like, the benefit from Hospital of Boston, they have in September, outside of Boston, they have the Boston Harbor Islands National Park, and there's great access from the city by ferry to get out there. And it's the weekend that's after all the PHRF racing is done, and it started out to be this kind of one more PHRF race, but it's become this huge sort of cruisers event and party, and they have Harpoon Beer sets up, well, they can't put it on the national park, so they have a ferry there with beer on the ferry. They have bands, and a lot of the restaurants from Boston come out, and it just becomes a celebration of the islands, which is, so I think anything that can celebrate a location or benefit or cause, right, or
Now, on the cost
get
is-
people from one place to another.
party and the money goes, do you have an entrance fee and those type of things?
Well,
Or you had mentioned it, cost.
And in most cases, what they do is, you pay an entrance fee, and the entrance fee covers the cost of running the event, and then you try and get sponsors. So you try and get sponsors just like you would for a triathlon or a road race or something like that. So get people to sponsor your boat in that event.
I think another thing, oh, sorry.
We do something similar in Texas. There's a regatta, it's Harvest Moon Regatta. It's in October and it's on the full moon so that you can sail. They sail from Galveston to Port Aransas, about 150 miles. So it takes a little bit overnight and then a little bit more. But they raise money for ovarian cancer. And so you register for the event and then you go out and go to all your buddies and say, hey, support my boat. And then there's an award for the person who raises the most money, kind of like the Leukemia Cups do.
Yep.
And then if you don't have a rating, they'll assign you a rating. And then kind of like you were saying with the ha-ha, everybody is in a division. There's about 5 boats in the division and they go 5 deep in every division. So pretty much everybody wins something. And they get their picture taken with, and it ends up with 200 boats in Port Aransas and a big party, basically, Saturday night. And then Sunday, everybody gets on a bus and goes home. Unless they sail.
Other comments or questions? Okay, I think we'll wrap this up. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to our panelists.
Thanks, guys.